Rabbi Green and his wife arrived in Hamilton with an 8-week-old baby. His acceptance of taking on the rabbinate was that in the new shul there would be schoolrooms for his son and others in the community.
One of the mitzvahs in the Torah is that you should convey and transmit that tradition to the next generation. And therefore day school was essential. You cannot have a Kehillah community without a day school.
When my mother died in 1951, my brothers and I said Kaddish. So we got to see that, hey, when these old timers go, there's nobody here. What are we going to do? Do we close up shop? So my brother led us and said, look, if we want to have a shul here or a community in this, we've got to have a day school and we got to have a shul and we got to build an edifice that meets the modern times in the area where most Jews are going to live. He had vision.
Their enthusiasm infected me to a great extent. And I always felt their loyalty and their commitment. Those years were the gold years, very eventful, very exciting. I was very enthusiastic. I felt that a mission was being fulfilled. I then called upon my president, Mr. Sam Katz, Shmilelia Katz, Olav Shalom. And Sam Katz was always most amenable when it came to the interests of the shul.
My father was part of the Polish Yeshua, which they called it years ago.
He was one of the best role models that I have ever met in terms of leading by example and stepping up to the plate. He was fiercely loyal to his Jewish heritage.
As he said, Yiddishkeit was important to him, and I think it was just instilled in him.
He would go to any family, to any individual, and beg them, if necessary, to join our congregation. That was the type of person that he was.
And he always told me that his wife, my mother, cooked him a great meal, and he had a great bed to sleep in. And he didn't need a lot beyond that.
Sam Katz and I went to see Rabbi HHA Waxman. I said, Rabbi HHA, I want you to become and join our family. I want you back.
My father came to Canada in 1911 and was immediately fired from his first job as a shoemaker because he refused to work on Shabbos.
I was 4.5 when my mother died, and my father had the monumental task of looking after a house full of children. And my sister Sylvia was an amazing woman. She had to stay home because my mother was sick, and she sacrificed her life to her family.
He got in touch with his 2 sons, Moshe and Haskell, Morris and Chester. Called him into the office. He always held the big office. 2 sons always gave him the covet of being and sitting in the big office, although these 2 ran the operation.
When my father called me and my brother into his office and closed the door, we knew not to sit down. We stood in front of his desk.
And this was the most, perhaps, inspiring experience that I've ever had, to see 2 sons give such covet to their father. And of course, he says, this is the situation. The rabbi has come. with Shmulevich Katz for us to return to the shul. And they all agreed, yes, they all agreed. We made a l'chaim, and Max introduced the project, telling them what we are prepared to build, and immediately the boys said, dedicated in honor of our father and in memory of our mother.
He said, you cannot let anybody go out of this office without giving them tzedakah. So no matter who came looking for money for Yiddishkeit, they got something. That was my father.
And here we are, gorgeous morning, absolutely gorgeous.
Then they told me about Mr. Sam Netkin, Olav Shalom. Well, the first time I went to see Sam, he was a very strong personality, a little flamboyant, and after our meeting, he called downstairs and said, give the rabbi a bag of bananas. So every time I went, the call went downstairs, and I brought home a bag of bananas.
Then Rabbi Green came to Hamilton. He was a little dynamo. He really impressed my dad. The rabbi instilled in him how important it is being Jews and it's a necessity that we carry on our heritage, and that's why he always subsidized and always helped in whatever it took to keep the shul and school prominent and going forward.
And then I said to Sam, you know, we're building this synagogue, and we'd like to set up a dedication in honor of you and your wife, Tilly Alei Shalom. And he says, you came at the most difficult time. I have many problems now. I am not in the position to make any commitment. And I said to Sam, you make a commitment and your problems will be solved. He says, yes, I wish it was so. Anyways, I'm sitting there and he says, okay, I'm gonna buy carloads of potatoes. And if this comes through, I'll have enough for the problem that I'm facing, and I'll have enough to pay you. I was shocked. So I don't know what the amount of carloads meant, but I was there every second day. Sam, how are we doing, Sam? Don't know yet. Sam, how are we doing? Don't know yet. Then finally I come in and he says, I have a bottle of cognac for you. I said, what kind of sign is that? He says, I solved my problem and I have the $50,000 for you too. You can imagine how I felt at that particular moment. They were literally nisim v'niflaot. Miracles happened. We dedicated the synagogue October 1961. No one thought that the Polacks would be able to build the most beautiful synagogue and sanctuary and Beit HaMidrash in this whole area. And now we're starting a day school, and therefore I was accused of breaking the community, and it was something very difficult.
The rabbi felt it very, very important that a school be established. This was met with great opposition. The school, they felt, was isolating their children, and they were ghettoizing the children, not realizing that these kids would be, in effect, liberated.
At that point, I went to see Zoli Freeman. Now, Zoli Freeman and Yetta became my real hard workers. Zoli was a very organized individual and made sure everything was looked after in terms of my budget, in terms of hiring teachers, in terms of tuitions. He was always there, and also active in the synagogue, in the board, and his wife Yetta. If I needed someone as a president of the sisterhood, she became president of the sisterhood. I need someone as president of the PTA, she took that role on.
One Saturday night, Rabbi Mordechai Green met Fidele and me, he told us that he was starting a day school. Our oldest daughter, Debbie, was already enrolled in the public school. He said, take her out and send her to the Hamilton Hebrew Academy. We took the rabbi's advice and we sent all our children to the day school.
So Zoldy Freeman was there throughout. He totally committed himself to the synagogue and the day school and the mikveh.
The Eretz Israel Shul and the Hamilton Hebrew Academy will always be close to our hearts.
April 17th, 1964, Friday, Yom Ha'atzmaut. Tragedy occurs. My mainstay, Mr. Max Hoffman, Olav Hasholem, died in Israel, and the burial will take place on Sunday.
He got into a taxi, was eating an orange, dropped dead, with his wife sitting beside him. 53 years old.
The loss of Max Hoffman was such a tremendous loss. The mortgage was high and not paid, and the entire burden was so difficult to carry. At that point, Mr. Ben Sauter, he was in the oil business, and before I would go to the other offices, every morning I'd stop off and meet with Ben. Ben, who are you going to see? I need you to go with me to see people, to get money, and to pay off the mortgages. He was my mainstay. Benny was the person who I would go to daily and report, and together we would go to see people in this community.
It was tough. It was very, very tough. I was out collecting money, and a lot of people were not interested.
I'm always grateful to Ben in my personal life, and also in terms of what his support was for anything that was Jewish, or anything I asked him for. Extraordinary personality, and our relationship is still very strong. December 1964, the Hamilton Hebrew Academy was inaugurated and the charter was formed. Dave Hoffman became president and played a very major role. And we, at that time, made it clear that the academy would be open to all the children in the whole community. Every child had a right to a Jewish education. It was not a privilege, it was a right. And therefore, if the parent could not afford to pay, we accepted these children. And this has been our policy ever since. If we talk about a community, Hamilton Hebrew Academy is the community school for every child, regardless what their affiliation and background.
I think Rabbi Green Jr. is going to do a super job, and he's going to keep this institution going full blast. We're not looking backwards.